Thank you both for joining us today.
Our pleasure.
So before I move on to the questions, I want to ask each of you to please reflect on how and when you entered the additive manufacturing space and how the segment has evolved since that time. And Valeria, I'll start with you.
Yes, thank you, Sharon. I discovered additive manufacturing more or less 10 years ago. At the beginning, the first approach was more on polymers 3D printing. And in my company, we decided to invest, I say, small money in a small 3D printer. At the beginning, we didn't know how to do with this machine, but more and more we had this tool, we understood to use it for support or to create a new tool for the conventional fluid power production. But then more and more we discover the amazing things that we can do with 3D printing. We started to think not to use this technology only as support for conventional manufacturing, but to create new innovative products thanks to additive manufacturing.
I was an applications engineer, a mechanical engineer at a company called SwageLock. And I had applied for a PhD program back in 2010, I believe. And I had heard of this thing called 3D printing that a professor was working on, Professor Baruch Hoshnevis, who was building large civil structures with a concrete 3D printer. He wanted to build homes here and on the moon, and even pitched doing it on Mars, I think. And so it sounded really cool to me. When I joined that lab, it was basically a bunch of PhDs who were building all sorts of 3D printing technologies from scratch. And that was the time when FDM printers started to become really prolific. I think the patents had just expired and people were building all these kits. So basically everyone around me was building kits and new different 3D printing technologies. And that's kind of how I got indoctrinated.
All right, so design freedom is obviously a huge benefit of additive manufacturing. So how does 3D printing technology specifically enhance design freedom when it comes to creating the intricate components for fluid power and electric motion control applications?
I think if freedom to design with additive manufacturing probably is the highest benefit that we found, especially in fluid power application, is something completely new. We need to change our design approach. We need also a new mindset to be really open to this innovation. I'd like to share, if possible, an image just to give you, in reality, what I mean with design for additive manufacturing. On your left, you see a very traditional hydraulics manifolds, square shapes with holes made by drilling, very conventional design and conventional also function. A few years ago, we were discussing with the customers and he needed to reduce the weight of this manifold. The original material was aluminum ergal. So already in fluid power, the lightest material that we can use for conventional manufacturing. Then the idea was to reduce the weight using the design. Design for additive allowed us to change the approach. So instead to remove material, as in the conventional manufacturing, we start to add material. And we add material only where it is needed. In particular, in fluid power, as you can see, in fluid powered manifold, we have channels with fluids inside and pressure. So during the design phase, we make a simulation on the fluidodynamics, and we add the material where it is needed by the function of these manifolds. This is a completely new approach. So when we started a few years ago to design for additive manufacturing, at the beginning, we were facing new challenges. So the mentality of our designers was completely disruptive because we needed to change the approach, change also the limitation that we have from the conventional design approach. So in this slide, you can see how we start. So we start from creating the piping and the channels, and then we add the material. This is a completely different approach from the conventional manufacturing and conventional design. After some years of experience with additive manufacturing, we found that the best combination is the conventional know-how and additive mindset. So the new mindset. So only with the combination and the contamination of two know-how, we are able to take the most profit from the design for additive in hydraulics components.
And how about you, Dr. Petros? Do you have anything to add to that about the design freedom?
I'm still pretty enamored with the beautiful manifold that Valeria just shared. Just absorbing that was a wonderful example. Yeah, I think she nailed it. The only thing I would add sort of around it is keying in on this mindset piece. I think this is very interesting. So we now have this ability to additively manufacture parts where almost all engineers in industry today, including myself, were classically trained with traditional manufacturing constraints in mind. And so typically when 3DO gets an opportunity to work with a customer, I would say over 90% of the time, 95% of the time, we're basically getting a part that was designed for traditional manufacturing, maybe has a minor tweak, and we get asked if we can engage to print that. I think that over the next 10 years, what we're going to see, or the next 5 years even, is today every college and university and most high schools in America have 3D printers. I think that the engineering talent that is going to come out of school and develop over the next several years is really going to be thinking sort of additive first, or at least the design freedom of additive as a sort of primary design path rather than a come back after the fact. And so I think that's really a nice tailwind for us here in this industry. And the other thing I would mention is that it's not just engineering mindsets that have to be aligned. It is also, as we're alluding to here, leadership mindsets. The reason to move to additive is typically not to reduce cost. It's typically to get some kind of performance improvement or differentiation factor. You design a really beautiful manifold like the one Valeria just showed because you're trying to get something out of it that you couldn't get before. That allows you to open up new opportunities for your business. It allows you to differentiate your business. And the more and more leaders realize that, America and really innovative companies around the world were founded on differentiated, innovative ideas. And the more they lean forward into that, I think the better it'll be for all of us.